Welcome in for an exciting episode here on Sons of Dynasty. With me tonight, I have an astrophysicist, an adrenaline junkie, and the father of modern science himself, Jetpack Galileo. Most of you maybe know him from Twitter at Jetpack Galileo and holding down the head rocket science department there for the FF astronauts. JPG, it is an absolute pleasure to get back on the microphone with you again. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, excited to be here for sure. That intro is so clean. I love seeing that all the time. Um, but yeah, just happy to be here. We're just getting back from Easter road trip, and my daughter, she gets upset. You know, she's my daughter because she gets upset anytime I'm driving under 75. So she's too young for the jetpack right now. So that's why we're still using the wheels. But soon enough, she'll be flying around.
Yeah, training wheels are an absolute must. I mean, as much as we want these kids to just be straight born winners from the get-go, we realize that sometimes you need to build a steady foundation for these children and really give them the opportunities to succeed in the future based off of what we're putting in these younger years. So I see you. We're doing that. Dad life. Congratulations to you and the missus there on that baby that you guys had. So, man, I'm super pumped for you and super pumped to talk about some of the stuff we are going to be discussing this evening.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, JPG, we are officially under a week away from the 2022 NFL draft. There's lots of buzz surrounding this incoming rookie crop, and I know you guys over at the FF Astronauts have been grinding all offseason, putting together the rookie guide that you guys have finally launched, and tell everybody what they can expect if they do get a copy that is available now at ffastronauts.com/rookie-guide. JPG, what can they expect?
Yeah, so for us and really the identity of the astronauts is we're trying to blend film with analytics in a way that is more specific than just what you're going to get with any other guide. So we're really diving into the tape. I put out most of my film stuff on Twitter just straight up. We do a lot on YouTube as well, but ultimately what we're trying to do is take a good, solid football understanding of what's going on and then taking that process and then using that in the way that we scout players. So for me, just as far as how I started that process off was, hey, I'm looking at film. I can put together rankings or whatever. But if I start grading these players, then I can really identify, oh, am I improving? Are these grades actually worth anything at all? And I think we're one of the only fantasy people or fantasy groups out there that's publishing consistently fantasy relevant content in terms of, oh, this correlates to fantasy success. We're not just watching football and saying, oh, I like this guy, or, this or that in terms of the way he catches the ball, or he had a one-hand catch that's really nice, where we're saying, okay, the way that I evaluate his ability to move in space, that correlates to fantasy, and I can, do that mathematically. And so that blend of film and analytics, that's really what we're after with the rookie guide. I'm excited about the team that we put together to do that. I think it's the best in the galaxy.
Yeah, speaking of best in the galaxy, it is that film room that you guys have there at the FF Astronauts. I find myself in and out of there almost on a daily basis. And the Twitter videos that you're known to upload here and there, that really kind of breaks it down nicely. You've really honed a craft there that even for individuals like myself that aren't quite to the aspect that you are when it comes to breaking down and what we do see on the tape, but you simplify it down for some of us in a way that we are able to understand. And I really enjoy some of that stuff that you have been putting out there on Twitter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we forget too. It's just football, right? Like so many guys played, so many guys have an experience of what it's like. We just, if we look at it from a coaching lens or we look at it from a scheme lens, that opens up so many things in terms of the way that we understand fantasy. So, I mean, it's all the same. It's just translating it from when we played to the game of evaluating players. All we need is just a little bit of connection. Oh, here's how I evaluate this film. And then all of a sudden I'm onto it. So there's no hidden secret, right? A lot of it is just kind of remembering, oh, well, yeah, this was important when I was coached.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, with lots of talk and hype surrounding the incoming rookie class, we do want to talk about the importance of draft capital and landing spots, something that does also go into that rookie guide once we do have the draft capital and quite frankly is known to shake up things as far as our rankings and our models go. Draft capital tends to be a significant factor. We know that if the NFL is valuing these guys, that we need to take notice and value these guys more than likely the same. So, JPG, one thing that you have been doing over the last couple seasons at this point is working on a landing spot grade system that does evaluate three components of a prospect's first NFL team. Can you tell us a little bit more about what goes into that and more importantly, the success rate that you've had over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, so part of the idea of draft capital being so valuable is it captures a team's investment in a player. It captures the opportunity that he's going to get, and in some sense, it captures his talent to a certain extent. And so, for most people putting together analytical models, draft capital is the thing. And the idea behind the landing spot grade is we can take those same ideas. Oh, what's the opportunity like that's available to him? And we can say, let's basically ramp that up. So the idea behind the landing spot grade ultimately for me is that eventually I put something together that beats draft capital. So the way that I've built mine out is I have three categories that I'm looking at when I'm grading a landing spot. I'm looking at the opportunity. This is going to be the heaviest weight, the most important thing. And again, this is why draft capital is valuable, but I'm projecting or figuring out more specifically with the landing spot what a player's opportunity is. So with this, I'll look at the depth chart and I can run through and we can look at player contracts, right? You can put numbers on all of this stuff, but ultimately what you're after is to say, okay, what kind of projected target range is this player going to hit? What kind of competition does he have against the rest of the team? How likely is he to make an immediate impact? And then I'm looking at the rest of his teammates. So opportunity score is more like the competition between teammates. This teammate score is more about who's going to be supporting him. So with running backs, I care about what the offensive line play is like. With receivers, I care about what the quarterback is like. I think about Najee Harris, right? And he's an easy guy to project because you know he's going to get a ton of opportunity, right? That's at 75% heavy weight in the landing spot score. So he's going to score high there. But his offensive line sucked. So you have to be able to say, okay, he needs efficiency somewhere else because I know on the ground he's not going to perform very well. And that matched up really well. I think he was under 4 yards per carry. And so we can say, okay, well, what else fits in? There's team and scheme fit. And that's where we get into things like, well, Najee is a really talented receiver. I know that they're going to pass him the ball a ton. So I'm going to bump him up a little bit more to push that final landing spot grade back up into that upper tier. So even though, right, his offensive line isn't a great caliber, he's got to have awesome opportunity. He's going to be throwing the ball a ton. That's a great landing spot for him. So ultimately, that's what we're looking for is how do I identify what's going into where he's going to be? And I think the biggest problem right now with, I shouldn't say problem, but one of the current issues is we're obsessed with college stats. And so we take all of our college stats and we say, well, this player is going to be this because of what he did in college. And the reality is, as soon as you leave college, you don't take any of that with you. Everything that goes with you is, oh, I got a team here, right? And my team is going to be taking care of me. My team is going to be blocking for me, all that kind of stuff. So it's better and more important to evaluate the situation that you're going into than it is to care so much about what you've seen in the past. And I think ultimately looking forward, that's where we find, okay, now I can put together some serious projections.
And putting a little bit more context in behind this landing spot grade when we talk about some of the receivers that we've seen, from the 2019, the 2020, and the 2021 class. I mean, who were some guys that the landing spot really kind of shed some light on? Maybe a guy that we need to be paying a little bit more attention to versus one of these guys that maybe was kind of looking like a little bit more of a fade. This landing spot grade of yours has really been able to identify some guys, and I really enjoy the edge that you've been able to find here.
Yeah, so I think if we're kind of looking at the last year's class, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think was pretty obvious for everybody, but that he had no competition going in. Eventually, he was going to be the guy. So if he had any like remote talent at all, you knew he was going to be producing in some way during his rookie year, because there was nobody else. Who else was on that team? It was
Reynolds.
Reynolds, yeah, Josh Reynolds. Who else can you think of? I think that's the point, right?
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
definitely
So
it.
as
And
soon as
Hawkinson in and
as
out.
soon as Hawkinson went down, right, then it was toast. But so even though he's a 4th-round pick, his landing spot value was so high, and so when people are not looking at the landing spot and they're saying, "Oh, I don't care about those things anymore," Jalen Reagor was bad that one time. I don't care about that, right? And they only care about draft capital, then you're going to miss some of that value, right? So right now in the market, everybody's looking at draft capital. Everybody's saying, okay, well, he's a 4th-round pick. In my model, that's going to bump him down a pretty significant amount. But you can look at the landing spot and say, well, no, we should bump him back up. And I think really that's what we're trying to do with the landing spot score is how do I find an edge? And just like you're saying, right, how do I find the edge? And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great example of a good edge that we were able to find there.
And just one more thing is with the landing spot grade, so much weight seems to be emphasized on opportunity there, a huge chunk of it. And unfortunately, though, that seems like it's one of those things that can change. While the opportunity may look great end of April, beginning of May, we continue to see more pieces get shifted around the NFL. Veteran wide receivers that we don't expect to go anywhere anytime soon are getting shifted, across the division. The opportunity can change significantly, and it seems like it's overnight in the NFL. How can you, weight something like that? Obviously, we can't see what we can't see, but you have to think that opportunity can change overnight in today's NFL.
Yeah, well, I think what makes the landing spot score valuable in that sense is really we care about what's going on in the first year. Like one season is such a long period of time, and everybody in Dynasty pretends that they want to think 3 years out, right? But just already, you look at how much the wide receiver value shifts after just 1 year, right? All of a sudden, again, a guy like Amon-Ra, right? He's now certainly more valuable than some of the other guys that went ahead of him. And there's a huge gap there. Right now, he's people are going to say he's a top 20 wide receiver. And so with the landing spot score, you're capturing immediate value. And that's ultimately what people are going to be looking at, right? As soon as a guy is bad for 1 year, already his value is toast, but he's bad for 2 years, right? And that's really the time frame we're looking at with a lot of the landing spot stuff, the system changes, all that kind of stuff. But if he's bad for 2 years in a row, it's over, right? Nobody's going to care. So trying to capture immediate value, it's okay that it's temporary. It's still going to work out because the immediate value is really what matters to fantasy players.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear that. Obviously, opportunity is big. And from a redraft perspective, from a dynasty perspective, especially with these rookies, opportunity is everything. You need an opportunity if you're going to perform, and you can't expect to perform if you are not given that opportunity. So I see what you're saying, JPG, and we can keep it moving along. I want to mention a couple of wide receivers from this year's class coming in. Obviously, we've all had plenty of time to dig in on these guys. I am planning to release my pre-NFL draft Superflex rookie rankings here in the next couple of days. I've been procrastinating, but it almost just like any of these pick'em contests, you want to wait till that last minute, and get a feel for some stuff that's happening. Even the rumors, I take it all in, but here in the next couple of days, I am planning on releasing that. So let's talk about a couple of these guys, especially at the wide receiver position, and almost a rapid fire round, if you will, JPG. I'm just going to throw a phrase at you, and I want you to hit me with the prospect in this year's class that comes to mind. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Again, talking wide receivers here. Who has the best hands in this class? And I'm going to go ahead and throw out the hashtag arrogant hands here because I do have JPG with me tonight.
Yeah, I think Jahan Dotson has the best hands. He's so sticky. He's easy to remember.
Yeah, no, I'm right there too. I do like him. He is my typical wide receiver that I do like, right there in that body frame size, good route runner, good hands. Those are the things that I'm looking for as far as the wide receivers that I like investing in. And while the capital may not be there, and he may never really truly be an alpha in today's NFL, he could be a hell of a wide receiver too for a team given the opportunity. So I'll be excited to see his landing spot grade, here 1st of May or whenever it may be. All right, next one we're going to move into who has the best routes, who's getting that really good separation of the prospects in this year's class.
I've been impressed with Chris Olave lately. I think they train those guys really well, and him staying another year, I don't think that he necessarily gained uh, improvement in stock at all. But just as far as like what he's able to put out, I'm just really impressed with his tape. He's really intelligent in the way that he identifies player leverage and the way that he uses his head and his eyes, and his hips are incredibly smooth in and out with their change of direction. So he's a guy that I think he's going to stick around, and because of his route running, he'll have an immediate impact. So, people might fade him because he's a senior, and they might fade him because he's a little small for them, but he's a guy I think he can have impact right away.
Yeah, no, I enjoy him, Olave as well. I think he is a guy that can come in and step in a slot role in almost any offense in the NFL. And as you mentioned, because of the route running and what he offers, I think he can come in and make an impact as early as year one. So another guy we will be excited to see where he lands. All right, JPGA, we're talking about today's NFL, and it's bigger, it's faster, and it's stronger. Who is the best speed, size, strength specimen here in this wide receiver prospect pool as far as the full package? Just has it all. Maybe has that Julio Jones type physique that can really just blow defenders away, manhandle these smaller defensive backs and make them look foolish on a weekly basis.
Treylon Burks, and I think people want to fade him for maybe the 4.55, but anybody who's watched him play is not worried about that. They're worried about other things. But as far as size, speed, and what he's able to do, he's dominant. So, he's a guy that I'm still on in terms of I think he's worth the gamble. Big fan of Treylon.
I am right there with you. I am a big fan touting any of these SEC guys that are coming up through the draft that I can. I watched a lot of Treylon Burks this past year, and kid is a playmaker. He is electric. While he may have some nuances in the route running, my concern that he spent so much time in the slot, yes, no. I again, this landing spot is going to be crucial. He might be a guy that's fine in the slot. Something similar to what Juju Smith-Schuster was able to do his rookie season. I think Treylon Burks is still an absolute dog. And with the recent fade that we have seen, I find myself, I'll probably be loading up on Treylon Burks shares. But I think given the draft capital situation, if he does creep into the back of the first round, maybe even the top of the second round, we could see as many as, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers go off the board in the first round in the NFL draft. Treylon Burks could very well be one of those.
Yeah, I think the market is right on Treylon Burks. So having him at wide receiver 1, I think is too risky. But now where he's at wide receiver 5 or 4 or 5, right, that's perfect to bet on him. And so it's great because, people will make fun of each other for being right or wrong down the road, but you don't really win anything by being right before the NFL draft. So the way that we've sorted it out just as a marketplace, I think that's actually been pretty efficient. So Treylon, for me, the upside is huge. He could be the wide receiver 1 pretty easily. The downside is you end up with, kind of a holding pattern. You just got to learn and develop like a Terrace Marshall. But definitely want to gamble on him this year.
All right, JPG, let me ask you if you could pick one of these. Let's go one from each position if you could. Who is the one guy that if you were willing to put push your chips behind and bank on as far as being as successful at the next level, and not just for real football. Let's call it fantasy football here. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Those are really the only three that I'm interested in. Which three prospects would you be wanting to put your chips behind? And let's start with the quarterback position.
Oh, gosh. I hate these quarterbacks. So this was the hardest thing for me. So two things. I would say I have currently Sam Howell as my top quarterback. I don't love him, but like overall, I think he can be all right. I think in terms of like the actual market, and I was talking through this with somebody else too, that Malik Willis is a good trade chip. So for me, like if I'm drafting high, I might take Malik Willis because I feel like I can trade him for something. I don't really necessarily want him on my team. And so sorry to make this a little longer, but the quarterbacks are not where I want to be. Where are you at with these guys?
No, I'm right there with you. And it almost feels more that way the last couple of weeks. I find myself, if I'm not getting Breece Hall, and essentially if I don't have that 101, I'd like to move back, from anywhere from that 102 to that 104 range. I'd like to move back, and get to the 5, 6, 7 range potentially, even, especially with what we've seen from these running backs. Spiller kind of falling back down a little bit more. Yes, Walker is up there and probably the only guy that you can really consider there in the top 6 picks outside of Breece Hall, obviously. But it's really just it's these wide receiver grouping too, because they're outside of even the number one prospect in the wide receiver group. It's not consensus across the board. These top 5, top 6 guys are slick interchangeable, and given the analysts that you're talking to, they're in some form or fashion in that order. I just want a piece of that to be able to see which guy that I consider to be of value falls to me there at the maybe 106, 107 range. And if I can pick up an additional, let's call it a 2023 second round pick on the move back for a couple of spaces, bank on that every time for me.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody really loves 103, yeah, fine. Yeah, take it. I'll move to 107 or 108 happily. Yeah. Are you a Malik Willis fan in terms of, I don't like market wise?
I think market.
Look at?
I think market wise, and I've been looking obviously at some rookie boards across my leagues here, and even in leagues where I find myself quarterback needy, 101, 102 still feels pricey. I think once again, I'd rather move back through that 106 to 107 range, somewhere in there, and get a guy like a Howell or one of these other guys that might be in that range on top of whatever else I could stack on top of that. I like the upside of Willis, but damn it if the floor doesn't scare me just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, JPG, let's talk draft capital surprise. Is there a guy that you think, that may surprise people? And that can either be he's not going to get drafted quite as high as many in the industry are pegging him to be, or potentially a guy that you think is going to get drafted much higher and most people are sleeping on around the league.
Well, I think there's been plenty of hype, but I think Christian Watson's for sure a first rounder, and I think Calvin Austin is going to go in the top 50. The NFL cares about speed too much, and I think generally the fantasy space is low on both those guys, and I like them as dart throws just as much as I would like really anybody else in the range that they're going to be drafted in. So I think from a prospect standpoint, Calvin Austin has a size issue, but everything else he's really strong in. And so fantasy-wise, we could be looking at like a Marquise Brown type player. And I think it was you who said San Bernardino Brown. That made me laugh so much when he was struggling. But to see, Hollywood's recent success, I think that's really exciting. Just as far as like an undersized guy win again, right? So before him, it was like, oh, it's been a while since we had, besides Tyreek, it was like, oh, there's Deshaun Jackson, and really that's it. And so people are down on all of these smaller guys, but I think Calvin Austin compares to him in terms of his potential utility. He's a decent vertical receiver, but his release technique is actually pretty good, and he's got plenty of quickness. He played against Cincinnati, I think it was 2020, and he had a pretty good game against Sauce Gardner. And so Sauce is, I think, the best cornerback in this draft. And he handled him well, and he put together a bunch of really good reps against Austin. But just as far as Austin's ability to move around a bit and find a way to get free against, I think, an elite corner, that was significant enough to me to say this guy's got something. He performed really well at the Senior Bowl as well and showed a lot of good understanding of leverage there that I think is really important. So he's not just a 4.32 guy who's 5'7" or whatever. He has a good understanding of the game, and that's more important to me than breaking out young as a freshman at Memphis, right? That doesn't bother me as much as he's just a straight line speed guy. He's not. He can do a lot of things that you would need, and so if he goes to some place like the Chiefs, that could be really enticing, right? That would be a good spot for him. Same thing with Christian Watson. So his deal, he's this same kind of height, weight, speed freak. To me, a lot of his questions are just about consistency. He at the Senior Bowl, same kind of deal, showcased a better understanding than what he was able to do at NDSU. At North Dakota, they run the ball like 70% of the time. And so their route tree is a lot like Georgia Tech. So he's if you think about those Georgia Tech receivers, who are these freaks? These, Stephen Hills, Demarius Thomases, Calvin Johnsons, Darren Wallers, right? They're all like the same mold of guy, right? And you're kind of gambling on, okay, well, do they have any sort of agility at all? And if they do, then they end up being like really good. And so Christian Watson is a guy who he's got some agility. He can make a lot of the cuts. It's just a consistency thing. So I think as he's a developmental piece that I'm pretty excited about. I think draft capital will be pretty good for him. The landing spot, if he's able to be the wide receiver 2 on the depth chart, I'm excited about him like I would be like a DJ Chark.
Yeah, he's a guy that I struggled with when doing my rankings. I just couldn't quite peg down where I wanted to fit him in, but I think I am going to continue to keep him a little bit lower until I see that draft capital. Maybe it'll open my eyes a little bit. I know the NFL executives and scouts are in on him as far as what they've seen and what he's been able to do. But as you mentioned, just the level of competition and what he was asked to do as from a production standpoint and his profile just doesn't quite give me the warm fuzzies. So it's a guy that I've struggled with in my ranking process.
Yeah, he's felt a little bit like Brandon Ayuk in terms of the way that Brandon showed up at the Senior Bowl. You got Nagy talking him up a little bit, and you're like, what? What do we just saw N'Keal Harry? He's a bust, right? He's coming out of Arizona State. Who's this Brandon Ayuk guy who's just at a community college? Now he's at Arizona State. We're going to go back to that well into the first round after seeing this failure. And he ended up being pretty good. And there's something that to me that feels similar to that, right? We've got this really toolsy player who has all these maybe college question marks about, okay, what took so long for him to develop, all that kind of stuff. But the tools are there. So if he's in the right system, he's a guy that I'm interested in.
Yeah, definitely needs a system and like you mentioned, a developmental type guy. So it's going to take a quality coach and scheme to really, get him to blossom into what we think his potential could be. And it could be very high in the NFL here at the next level. All right, JPG, let's talk about a potential diamond in the rough. We've kind of dubbed St. Brown as the diamond in the rough from this past season. And a guy whose value in Dynasty shot up exponentially throughout the course of the season. And as we alluded to earlier, it ultimately came down to opportunity, and an opportunity that he stepped into was pretty much everything that he could handle there. And he didn't disappoint. So I really do like St. Brown, and I'm not opposed to selling at this point, just based off of where his value's gone. and based off of your potential, what you invested in him in the first place. Obviously, I don't expect him to get that demand that much volume year in and year out. I think he did take advantage of that opportunity, and I think his value has kind of reflected something that kind of feels not very sustainable. So I'm not opposed of getting out from St. Brown if the price is right, but I still do love him as a player here, and think he does have a good career ahead of him. But JPG, the question really is, if you could pick one guy in this upcoming class that could potentially take that Armand Ross St. Brown path, who would that be? And tell me why you think so.
So a guy that I like a lot is Kyle Phillips, and he is, probably going to be most people's like wide receiver 20. And I think that's a great spot for him. But when we're talking about like true diamonds in the rough, like true guys that nobody's really, really cares about, and he's, maybe he's going to be like a fifth rounder or whatever, he's a guy that I would be interested in. He can play. At UCLA, he was they would move him around the formation and they'd use him as the hammer. They'd throw him into motion and then they'd have him go and block and run plays. And he's this like, 5'11", 180-pound guy. And it's just so, just to see some of that toughness, that was great to see. And he's really slippery in his routes, and he understands what he's doing from the slot position. He's pure slot. I don't think he's going to be anything else other than that. But yeah, you get these guys in the right spot, get these guys, paired up with, across from a big alpha on the outside. He can eat all over the middle, just like a Wes Welker, just like a Hunter Renfrow type of guy. So,
JPG, I was recently checking out one of your articles over there for the FF Astronauts, and it was your landing spot article that you put out. And you said 9 of the 10 best rookie wide receivers in fantasy scored very well in the landing spot grade, with the exception of Jalen Waddle, who was graded before the Will Fuller injury debacle. Let's talk a little bit more about your landing spot grade and what we can do as far as, identifying. You had Justin Jefferson at a 96, Jamar Chase, obviously 98, Deebo Samuel, 91, Waddle, as we mentioned, he was down at 78. And why do you think Waddle was a little bit lower? Obviously, I know your infatuation with Will Fuller and the moon cycles.
yeah.
Obviously, that had something to do with it, and clearly is why that 78 showed up on there. Anything else that went into that?
No, I mean, you nailed it. Will Fuller is the alpha whenever he's on the field. So, yeah, to me, that's all that was about. And so part of the heart of the landing spot score and evaluating opportunity is bringing back some attention to vacated targets, right? So if Will Fuller's gone, right, who are those targets going to go to, right? Maybe you send 80 to 100 Devontae Parker's way, right? But you have another 100 to go to somebody else. And so that's ultimately what I'm looking for, is where can I, move these 100 targets? Is this player talented enough to receive those? And if he is, that's all you want in fantasy. That's all you want your first year, is to hit that triple target digit, and anybody who does that, then you're good to go, right? Amon-Ra is hitting that, and you can flip him, just like you were saying, right? Maybe I don't like him long-term. It doesn't matter. I got him for cheap, right? I identified a good immediate volume, and I can flip him for somebody who I actually think is good. So that's the ultimate value of the landing spot.
Yeah, that was what I did all off season with Elijah Mitchell. I ended up with a ton of shares in him, late third, late fourth round picks in a bunch of rookie drafts, and here I am this off season selling for late first or multiple seconds. I'm going to do that every year, especially with that San Fran running back rotation. As much as I do like Elijah Mitchell, I think he is a good running back. I just felt like I'd be a fool if I didn't capitalize on getting out from a few of those shares that I ended up with so many of this past offseason.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they draft. I don't really have any hope for Trey Sermon at all. I'm a Niners fan, and so just to get to see them play, I know that Elijah Mitchell fits what Shanahan wants to do. He only cares about speed. That's all he cares about. Trey Sermon's a 4.6 guy. So it's like you better be, some amazing receiver or whatever. And if you're not healthy enough to stay on the field, then some 6th-round pick is going to come in and run around and take your spot. And I'm really curious to see who they draft, because there's a couple of really fast running backs in this class that are actually good, right? Pierre Strong would be a super great fit for them. He could be all over the board in terms of like what NFL team actually drafts him. But I'm really excited about Pierre Strong, and I'm also excited about Ty Chandler. And Ty Chandler's this, I think he's a 5th-year senior, transferred to University of North Carolina his last year. And when you're watching Sam Howell tape, the best player on film is not Sam Howell, and it's not Josh Downs, who's also very good. It's Ty Chandler, who's just coming in and he's carrying the team, and I mean, just so explosive. And so I was a big fan of Ty. I think that he's like the perfect running backs don't matter back. When he comes in to week 8 or 9 in the season, and he started the year out as the 4th-string running back, but everybody else is hurt because that's the way the league works. He's a guy that I'll be like, I'm making sure to scoop him up off of waivers.
Yeah, I feel like there's actually quite a few guys in this class that I feel that way about, either late round running backs or potentially even late round wide receivers. Now, post NFL draft, obviously, we may feel a lot differently about some of these guys, but I'm excited about this rookie draft. As much as there's not a ton of that real tier 1, can't miss prospects in this draft class. Breece Hall obviously is the closest thing we have, and I do love him. But outside of him, there's really not anybody that is an absolute shoe-in of a prospect. But it does seem like, they are spread out into a decent amount of depth here, really getting into the 2.4, 2.5 range. I'm still pretty excited about making that pick. Anything past that, obviously, I'm throwing some darts. But, as much shit as they talked about this class for the last, what felt like year or two at this point, I'm still excited for these rookie drafts upcoming.
Yeah, so just in terms of like my film grade, I would say, what do I have? I have 6 guys in the 80s for the film grade, right? So to me, that means I have 6 guys that are potential wide receiver 2s that should be immediate starters. And usually, again, if they're an immediate starter, they're going to have immediate fantasy value and turn into something. And that's pretty high. Last year, I only had 4, I think. And so just as far as like, maybe you're looking and you don't say, okay, we don't have an alpha or whatever, but you have 6 guys that you're pretty comfortable gambling on that have wide receiver 1 upside. And for me, I saw a couple guys commenting on Pickens. Pickens is a guy that I think he could fit in and be a surprise guy to be a wide receiver 1 down the road. Olave is another guy that I think people are just generally sleeping on. As far as like, he's for sure a wide receiver 2. He can have immediate value. But my blue chip of this wide receiver class is Garrett Wilson. And that's become a standard take now, but it wasn't at the beginning. But again, the market figures it out. They get their time, they get their hands on the film, and then they figure it out. But Garrett Wilson is, I think, special because he actually kind of knows what's going on on the football field. And he's versatile and he's explosive, and you're going to use him in the screen game, all that kind of stuff. So Garrett Wilson, I'm a big fan of overall. Yeah. Gorgeous George. Rusty knows.
Yeah. Oh, man. Rusty knows. Hashtag Rusty knows. Big fan of George Pickens and anything and everything UGA coming out of the great Peach State down here.
That's right.
Moving on along, JPG. I guess we are going to do, if Brother Matt is ready there for the producer, we are doing a giveaway here tonight. We were doing a YouTube subscription giveaway. It is a Viridian hat giveaway, just like this hat right here, or many others to choose from. Viridian Global is your one-stop shop for anything and everything FF gear related. Sons of Dynasty has their own page, as well as many other FF entities in the industry that you can find there, and many other NFL shirts as well. Make sure you do check out ViridianGlobal.com. And Brother Matt, let's go ahead and pull the wheel up, and we are going to select a lucky winner here this evening. Let's see who is our winner of the free Viridian Global hat. It is looking like, who could it be? Punk Child P. I'm not even 100% sure who that is, but at Punk Child P will definitely be reaching.
Winner.
We will be reaching out to you and linking up with you and getting you your free Viridian Global hat. We appreciate you subscribing here to the Sons of Dynasty YouTube, and as well as anybody else who participated in that. There will be one more giveaway coming up in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you stay tuned with us here at Sons of Dynasty, are subscribed, and be on the lookout for that next giveaway. JPG, while I got you here, man, is there anything other than the rookie guide that you guys have going out that you want to plug? If you want to take another couple of minutes to talk about the rookie guide or anything else, feel free. But anything you got going on that you want to plug here tonight, let the listeners, the viewers know about and what they can expect from you.
Yeah, so a complimentary piece to the rookie guide is Draft Breakdown Elite. And for us, this was something that I started to create for myself, just so that it would be easier to go back and scout these players. But I think just the reality is this is one of the best tools for scouting out there. So what we're doing with Draft Breakdown Elite is the typical draft breakdown room that we have. We're pulling games from YouTube. We're putting that into a film room that's easy to sort, where you're watching the player play like a whole game, and you get his game film of that game. What we're doing with Elite is we're going by play type. So if I want to see how Jameson Williams looks against press, then I have clips of him against press. I have about 5 minutes of him against press. If I want to see how he looks running intermediate routes, I can just look that up. And that's all right there. And so what we're doing with Draft Breakdown Elite, we're doing 5 games each. We're cutting those into clips. Usually that ends up being about 10 to 15 plays of a guy doing different specific tasks. But that is going, that's going to revolutionize the way that you scout. If anybody's into that at all, make sure you check out Draft Breakdown Elite. We got all sorts of videos. We got quarterbacks, how they look out of the pocket, how they look under the pressure, bad throws, tough throws, all of those kinds of categories. Tight ends, we got blocking, we got lining up in different positions. So just a wide range of being able to streamline your own scouting process. Now you don't have to watch the whole game. You don't have to sit through meaningless plays. You can do it all right there in front of you in a single video.
Yeah, man, I love that. A couple weeks back, you put out a demo version of that, and we got to kind of take a peek behind the curtain as it was unfolding, and I really enjoyed that. As you mentioned, just really cutting the fat out, getting straight to the meat and potatoes, as they like to say, and right there in front of you. It does make scouting, especially these specific features. They're saying, oh, so and so can't get off press. It's like, oh, really? Well, let's go take a look. And just with a few clicks, you are watching that very individual, either get smashed in press coverage or smash himself. So I really love that aspect. I think you guys are doing a great job taking this film analysis to the next level. And I'm going to be right there with you guys, riding along for the journey, man. You guys are top tier one when it comes to the film room here in the YouTube space and FF Twitter. I know your rookie guide is featuring, landing spot slider, which helps you organize your ranks with things that you prioritize. And you can also download the entire data set, throw their data into your own personal models. The revolution is here, and the astronauts are the leaders in innovation. Again, JPG, big thank you for coming on here tonight. Be sure you do follow him and all the waning gibbous moon phases on Twitter at Jetpack Galileo. Anything else that you want to say, JPG, before I close us out?
Oh, man, it's been great to be here.
Hey, this is our second episode we've gotten to do together, and I can't help but deny the chemistry that is flowing here through the microphones, man. So we definitely have to get up on another one here. Maybe once we get this, the NFL draft out of the way, you and I can get back together, and once the draft capital, landing spot grades are in, we can see how your model is unfolding, because that's a heavy piece of it. So I'd love if we could get together again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that for sure. So
All right, everybody.
for us, we've taken a little break on the podcast, on our podcast. So maybe your podcast is where we start doing more.
Hey man, I'd love that. We've obviously got the guy here behind the scenes in Brother Matt making these badass overlays that we have each and every week. I can't thank him enough for the hard work that he puts in to these overlays to make myself and you JPG look as amazing as we did tonight. So make sure you're following him. That's on Twitter at @DY_nasty_dude. That is Brother Matt here with Sons of Dynasty. And make sure you're following Sons of Dynasty at Dynasty Sons. Subscribe here on YouTube. And until next time, much love to everybody. Appreciate you, JPG.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. It was a good time.
JPG.